Jackson wiped the sweat from his forehead and leaned back, staring at the jumble of tools scattered across the metal workbench. The hum of engines and distant chatter filled the hangar, but he hardly noticed. His mind was already on the next part, the next adjustment. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy, and Jackson knew everyone expected him to fail. They didn't even try to hide it. Across the hangar, a group of tall, sleek aliens gathered. Their eyes glinted with amusement as they watched him bend over a heap of metal and wires. A human trying to fix alien tech? One of them whispered loudly enough for him to hear. He will just make it worse. Jackson didn't respond. He had grown used to the mocking. Humans were small, not strong, not fast. They were considered clumsy and weak by most species. But Jackson had something that others didn't see: patience and a sharp mind. He believed that even a human could do great things if he worked hard enough. The sound of footsteps made him look up. A small figure rolled into the hangar on a hover chair. It was Lyra, a young alien girl with bright violet eyes. Her legs were motionless, stiff, and lifeless. She smiled shyly at Jackson, her eyes full of hope. Can you help me?" she asked, her voice soft but determined. Jackson's chest tightened. He had seen many machines in his life, but he had never seen a challenge like this. Helping Lyra would not be easy. She could not move her legs, and she wanted to do something no one thought possible: to drive a Podracer. Most people laughed at the idea. Some of the aliens in the hangar were already snickering, pointing at her chair. "Why bother?" one sneered. "Even if he tries, the human will fail. She is helpless. And look at him. He is just a tiny human with no skill in alien machines." Lyra's smile faltered for a moment, but she looked at Jackson. His steady eyes gave her courage. "I can do it," Jackson said quietly, almost to himself. Then he smiled at her. "We just need to find a way." The aliens laughed louder, shaking their heads. "He will break her chair," another said. "This human thinks he can fix the impossible." Jackson ignored them. He had learned long ago that words were cheap and opinions were weaker than action. He walked over to Lyra and knelt beside her hover chair. He studied the control panel carefully, tracing wires and buttons with his fingers. "This will take time," he said. "But I think we can make it work. Don't worry about what anyone says." Lyra's violet eyes brightened again. "Really?" she whispered. "Yes," Jackson said firmly. "Really?" The aliens muttered among themselves, some rolling their eyes, others shaking their heads in disbelief. One of the tallest, a silver-skinned alien named Veron, stepped forward. "You humans always think you can do something extraordinary. You always fail. This is just another example." Jackson didn't rise to the bait. He started dismantling part of the hover chair, carefully marking wires and checking the circuits. He had done hard jobs before, but this was different. Lyra needed freedom, and he was determined to give it to her. Hours passed. Jackson worked quietly while the aliens continued their snide remarks. They laughed at every small beep, every click of the tools. They whispered that no human had ever done anything important in the galaxy. He ignored them. At one point, a small panel on the hover chair sparked slightly. The aliens gasped and pointed. "See, he is destroying it," someone shouted. But Jackson remained calm. He adjusted the wiring, fixed the connection, and the spark disappeared. The aliens went silent for a moment, surprised that nothing exploded. Lyra giggled quietly, leaning a little closer. "You see," Jackson said gently. "Sometimes it just needs patience." By the end of the day, the hover chair looked different. It wasn't just a chair anymore, it had potential. Jackson had added new circuits, a better control system, and reinforced the structure so that it could carry more than just weight. It could carry hope. Lyra's eyes shone with excitement, and for the first time that day, the aliens' laughter didn't seem to bother her. As the sun set behind the hangar, the tall, mocking aliens drifted away, whispering among themselves. They still didn't understand Jackson or what he could do. But Lyra looked at him, her eyes full of gratitude and wonder. "Thank you," she said softly. Jackson smiled, wiping his hands. "Tomorrow we start building something bigger," he said. The aliens might have mocked him, but Jackson didn't care. They couldn't see what he could see. The human heart was stronger than anyone believed. And this was only the beginning. The next morning, the hangar was quiet except for the soft hum of engines and the occasional clank of metal. Jackson had arrived early, his toolbox in hand and a notebook filled with sketches of strange, complicated shapes. Today was the day he would start building something no human, or alien, had ever imagined. Lyra rolled in beside him, her violet eyes bright with anticipation. "Are we really going to do it?" she asked. Her voice trembled with both excitement and nervousness. "We are," Jackson said, smiling. "It won't be easy, but I think we can make it work. And don't worry. I've got a plan." Lyra's smile returned, wider this time. She leaned forward, eager to see the notebook. Jackson opened it, revealing sketches of a sleek, strange machine, lighter than any Podracer she had ever seen, with delicate wires and circuits that twisted like vines, and controls that would respond to her every thought and movement. Can I really drive it?" Lyra asked softly. "Yes," Jackson said firmly. "We will make it so you can. You just have to trust me, and yourself." While Lyra watched, Jackson began to dismantle parts of the hangar's old test pods. He salvaged engines, wheels, and rare metals, arranging them carefully. Every piece had a purpose. Every wire mattered. He worked with quiet concentration, moving quickly but carefully, like a painter shaping a masterpiece. Soon, the aliens who had mocked him yesterday returned, curious about what the human was doing. Some leaned on the rails, whispering and sneering. "Still trying to fix the impossible, human?" one asked. "She will never drive a real pod racer. You'll just waste more time." Jackson didn't respond. He knew words were cheap. Instead, he handed Lyra a small round piece of polished metal. "Here," he said. "This will help the controls respond faster. You can touch it, feel it." Lyra hesitated, then placed her fingers on it. Almost immediately, her eyes widened. The piece seemed to hum softly under her touch, and a small light glowed on the side of the machine. It works," she whispered. "Yes," Jackson said. "It works because you are part of it. We will build it together." The aliens gasped and muttered among themselves. Some shook their heads, unable to believe what they were seeing. The human, so small and fragile, was working on a machine that could change the rules of the race, a machine no alien had ever dreamed of driving. Hours passed. Sparks flew, engines purred, and wires curled into perfect loops. Jackson showed Lyra how to move her hands on the controls, explaining each button and lever. At first, she struggled, unsure if her movements would do anything. But Jackson encouraged her with a gentle voice. "Don't worry if it doesn't work at first. Every great pilot learns by trying." Finally, by the afternoon, the framework of the pod racer began to take shape. It was smaller and lighter than most, but elegant and precise. Lyra's face lit up as she saw it. "It's beautiful," she said. "I didn't know a human could make something like this." Jackson smiled. "Humans are full of surprises. We just need a reason to try." The aliens murmured and looked on, astonished. Some of them still whispered about how it could never succeed, but even they could not deny that the human skill was impressive. They had expected clumsy failure, but instead they saw careful design, clever engineering, and a machine that seemed almost alive. Lyra climbed onto the seat of the pod racer with Jackson's help. He adjusted the controls for her, adding sensors and smooth touch buttons. "Try moving your hand here," he instructed. She did, and the tiny engines on the test platform purred in response. Lyra's eyes sparkled with wonder. "It's like it understands me," she said softly. "Yes," Jackson said. "It listens to you. That's how it will work. You don't have to move your legs, it will go wherever you want." The day faded into evening, and the hangar glowed under soft lights. The aliens had left, whispering their disbelief and leaving the human alone with his young pilot. Jackson wiped his hands on his overalls and looked at Lyra. "Tomorrow we start testing the full engine," he said. "If all goes well, you might drive it sooner than you think." Lyra's smile grew wide, full of hope. For the first time in her life, she felt that maybe, just maybe, she could do something no one else thought possible. And for the first time, the aliens who mocked Jackson would see that humans were more than they appeared, clever, determined, and unafraid to dream. As Jackson packed his tools, he looked at the half-built pod racer and felt a surge of pride. This was not just a machine. It was hope, courage, and a little human stubbornness rolled into one. And he knew deep down that this was only the beginning. The race of their lives was coming, and they would be ready. The next morning, the hangar was alive with a soft buzz of engines and the smell of hot metal. Jackson had spent the night checking the Podracer's circuits, polishing its sleek body, and making sure every control was perfect for Lyra. She rolled into the hangar, her violet eyes wide with excitement and nervousness. "Today," Jackson said, "you get to try it for the first time." Lyra's small hands shook as she reached out to touch the controls. "What if I can't do it?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You will," Jackson said, kneeling beside her. "Remember, it's not just the machine. You and it work together. Just trust yourself." The aliens who had mocked Jackson yesterday were watching from the side. Some leaned against the railing, arms crossed, smirking. "This will be entertaining," one whispered. "Let's see the human fail again." Jackson ignored them. He focused on Lyra, who was already seated in the Podracer. He adjusted the seat, tightened a few wires and tapped on a panel. The engines hummed softly, a sound like a purr, and the lights on the dashboard blinked in rhythm. "Ready?" Jackson asked. Lyra nodded. She gripped the controls tightly. The Podracer shivered under her hands, like it was alive and listening to her. Jackson stepped back, giving her space, and watched closely. At first, the Podracer moved awkwardly. It jerked left, then right, and the small wheels squeaked. Lyra's face turned pale and a flicker of fear crossed her eyes. The aliens laughed quietly. "I told you," one muttered. "The human can't help her." Jackson knelt beside the machine and touched a small sensor. "Easy," he said. "Breathe. Think of it like a dance. Move slowly, feel it, and it will follow." Lyra took a deep breath. She relaxed her fingers and gently guided the controls. The Podracer responded, moving forward smoothly for the first time. Her eyes widened in amazement. "It's working," she whispered. "Yes," Jackson said softly. "You're doing it." The aliens stared, their mouths open. A few shook their heads in disbelief. "Impossible," one said. "A human, and a paralyzed alien." Lyra laughed, a small, happy sound that filled the hangar. She pushed the controls a little more, and the Podracer turned sharply around a corner marker without tipping over. The engines hummed faster, the machine gliding like a bird over the floor. Jackson's heart swelled with pride. "See? You are the pilot. The Podracer is listening to you." Lyra's confidence grew. She leaned forward slightly, her hands moving with more skill, guiding the Podracer through a small obstacle course Jackson had set up. Every twist and turn felt like magic. The other aliens were silent now, eyes wide, watching her move. Minutes passed and the flight improved. Lyra's face shone with joy and wonder. For the first time she felt free, as if she could leave her wheelchair behind forever. The Podracer moved like an extension of her body, responding to every thought and intention. Jackson watched her closely, ready to intervene if needed, but it was clear she had begun to understand the rhythm of the machine. Each turn, each push of a lever was smoother than the last. Even the mocking aliens could not hide their astonishment. "Unbelievable," muttered one. "The human actually did it." Lyra beamed. "I can do it. I can really do it." "Not quite yet," Jackson said with a grin. "We have more to practice. But you're already better than most pilots who have arms and legs." She laughed again, her laughter ringing through the hangar. For a moment, nothing else mattered. Not the mocking, not the whispers, not even the vast galaxy outside. It was just her, the Podracer, and the human who had believed in her when no one else did. By the end of the test flight, Lyra could control the Podracer with surprising skill. She stopped it gracefully, hopped off with Jackson's help, and looked up at him, her eyes sparkling. "Thank you," she said simply. Jackson smiled. "You did all the work. I just built the machine. You made it fly." The aliens who had mocked him yesterday were now quiet, standing in stunned silence. They could not deny what they had seen. A human had not only built a machine for a paralyzed alien but had also taught her to pilot it successfully. Lyra rolled closer to Jackson, her excitement barely contained. "Tomorrow, can we try faster?" she asked eagerly. "Faster," Jackson agreed. "But we will take it slow. We need to make sure everything is safe. You'll be ready?" As the sun set behind the hangar, the engines cooling with a soft sigh, Jackson looked at Lyra and the half-empty obstacle course. He felt a warm pride. Humans were small, aliens thought weak, but today he had shown that courage, patience, and skill could overcome expectations. And Lyra, brave, determined Lyra, had proven that limits existed only in the mind. The galaxy might still underestimate humans. They might still mock. But for now, in this quiet hangar, a human and a paralyzed alien had done something incredible together. And that was only the beginning. News of Lyra and Jackson's Podracer spread quickly across the galactic hub. Aliens whispered about the small human who had built a machine for a paralyzed girl, and many doubted it could survive a real race. But curiosity was stronger than doubt. Soon, the announcement came. The Interstellar Podracer Challenge would take place on the outer ring of the galaxy, and Lyra had been invited to compete. Lyra's violet eyes widened when she heard the news. "A real race?" she asked, her voice shaking. With other pilots?" "Yes," Jackson said, adjusting the straps on her seat. "Real pilots, real speed. But don't worry, we've trained enough. You can do this." The aliens who had mocked him before were watching again, this time in the grand arena. Many shook their heads, still laughing quietly. A human-built machine? And she will race against the best? Ridiculous, one whispered. Lyra gripped the controls tightly. I don't know if I can, she admitted. You can, Jackson said firmly. Remember yesterday? Remember how it felt when the Podracer followed you perfectly? That same feeling will guide you now. Trust yourself, and the machine. The arena was enormous, stretching miles in every direction. Bright lights illuminated twisting tracks, loops, and sharp turns. Ships zoomed past in practice runs, engines roaring and sparks flying. Lyra's Podracer, small and sleek, looked fragile in comparison. But Jackson's design was clever. It was light, fast, and responsive to her slightest touch. The race began. Lyra hesitated for a moment, then pushed forward. The Podracer responded instantly, gliding smoothly over the track. The crowd gasped, aliens and humans alike staring in shock. The first few turns were difficult. Lyra wobbled, nearly tipping over, and the bigger, more experienced racers zoomed past her. The aliens in the stands snickered, whispering that she wouldn't last. But Jackson's voice echoed in her mind, "Trust yourself." Lyra took a deep breath. She adjusted her hands, leaned into the turns, and slowly began to gain control. The Podracer followed her commands perfectly. The hum of the engines became a song she could feel in her chest, a rhythm guiding her through every twist and loop. Gradually she started catching up. One by one, the larger, heavier racers found it hard to turn as quickly as her light, human-built Podracer. She darted through narrow passages, skimmed the edges of steep curves, and even avoided obstacles that forced the others to slow down. The crowd erupted in cheers. "What is that?" one alien shouted. She's faster than them." Lyra laughed, the thrill of speed making her forget her fears. She leaned forward, feeling the wind and the hum of the engines, a perfect harmony between pilot and machine. Jackson, watching from the side, felt pride swell in his chest. Humans might be underestimated, but today his skill and determination, and Lyra's courage, were proving otherwise. The final stretch was a long straightaway, engines roaring. Lyra's Podracer shot forward, weaving around competitors with skill and precision. The aliens who had mocked them were now silent, unable to believe their eyes. Even the most experienced racers struggled to match her speed. At the last moment, Lyra leaned into the final turn, guiding the Podracer with perfect control. She crossed the finish line first, the engines screaming in triumph. The crowd went wild, cheers echoing across the arena. Aliens, humans, and spectators alike were on their feet, applauding the small human and the paralyzed alien who had defied every expectation. Jackson rushed forward, his heart pounding with joy. "You did it," he shouted, lifting his hands in the air. Lyra laughed, tears of happiness in her eyes, and the two shared a victorious moment. The aliens who had mocked him before approached cautiously, their expressions unreadable. Finally, one of them bowed slightly. "I underestimated you," he said. "Your human ingenuity is remarkable. And your pilot, truly extraordinary." Lyra smiled, her voice steady and confident. "We just believed we could do it." Jackson nodded. "And that's the thing about humans," he said softly. "We try. We don't give up. Even when others laugh or doubt us, we keep building, keep dreaming, and keep proving ourselves." The race was more than a victory. It was a statement. Humans could create, innovate, and excel, even in a galaxy that didn't expect it. Lyra and Jackson had not only won the race, they had shown the universe that courage, skill, and determination were stronger than size, speed, or strength. As the sun set over the arena, Lyra's Podracer glowed softly, a symbol of hope and ingenuity. Jackson looked at the crowd, the cheering, and the astonished aliens. He knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy might still underestimate humans, but now they would remember. Lyra rolled beside him, her eyes bright with excitement. "What's next?" she asked. Jackson smiled, ruffling her hair. "Next we keep dreaming. And maybe, we shake the stars even more." The arena was still buzzing from the excitement of the race. Lyra's victory had shaken the crowd, leaving spectators whispering and staring in awe. Humans were small, often underestimated, but today one human had built a machine that carried a paralyzed alien to victory. And for the first time, many aliens began to see humans differently. Jackson stood beside Lyra, his hands resting on the sleek metal of the Podracer. The engines were cooling now, giving off a soft, steady hum. Lyra's violet eyes sparkled, still bright with the thrill of the race. She looked at him, and for a moment words were not needed. They had done it. Together. The judges of the race approached, nodding and smiling. "This was remarkable," one said. "Never have we seen such skill or such a machine. You have both proven something extraordinary today." Lyra rolled her eyes in embarrassment, hiding her grin. "It was Jackson," she said softly. "He built the Podracer. I just drove it." Jackson laughed quietly. "You did the driving. You made it fly. We did it together." The aliens who had mocked them before now approached, their expressions careful, respectful. Varan, the tallest among them, stepped forward. "I underestimated you," he said slowly. "A human, building a machine for a paralyzed alien, and winning a race I thought no one could. You have my respect." Jackson nodded, smiling. "Thank you. It wasn't easy, but we believed we could do it." Varan's eyes softened. "Humans, they have determination we often forget to respect. Today you have reminded us." Lyra rolled closer to Jackson, her small hands resting on his arm. "We showed them," she said simply. "Even if they doubted us, we can do great things." Jackson felt warmth in his chest. That was the truth he had always known. Humans might be small, weak, or underestimated by the galaxy, but they had heart, courage, and cleverness. They could face impossible challenges and still rise above. Soon the crowd began to gather around them, cheering. Spectators waved and called out, praising both the young alien pilot and the human mechanic who had built the incredible machine. Lyra's smile widened, her fear from before completely gone. She had not only driven the Podracer, she had conquered it, and in doing so she had conquered doubt itself. A group of journalists from across the galaxy approached with recording devices. "How did you do it?" one asked Lyra and then turned to Jackson. "How did you create a machine like this?" Lyra shrugged. "We just tried. We didn't listen to the people who said we couldn't. We believed we could." Jackson nodded. "And humans, we never give up. No matter how small or weak we seem, we keep working, keep building, and keep proving ourselves. That's what matters." The aliens who had laughed at them before now looked thoughtful, some even impressed. They realized that intelligence, patience, and determination were more powerful than size, strength, or privilege. Humans might be underestimated, but they were capable of incredible things. As the sun began to set over the arena, the light reflected off the metal of the Podracer, casting long golden streaks across the floor. Lyra's eyes followed the reflection, filled with wonder. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Jackson smiled. "Not just the Podracer," he said. "You made it beautiful. You made it alive." The crowd began to disperse slowly, many still talking about the incredible victory. Aliens who had doubted humans before now looked at them with new respect. Even the most skeptical pilots nodded silently as they passed. Varan lingered for a moment, watching Lyra and Jackson. "Perhaps humans are not so weak after all," he muttered, almost to himself. "Perhaps we have judged too quickly." Lyra laughed softly. "We'll have to show them more," she said, turning to Jackson. "There's still so much to do." Jackson ruffled her hair gently. "Yes, there is. But today we proved something important. Humans can build, humans can create, humans can win. And we did it together." As they rolled the Podracer back into the hangar, Lyra leaned back and smiled. The fear she had felt when she first tried to drive was gone. Now she felt strong, capable, and free. And she knew that with Jackson by her side, there was no challenge too great, no limit too high. Jackson watched her, pride swelling in his chest. Humans might be small, often laughed at, and often underestimated, but today they had proven that courage, skill, and determination could shake the galaxy. They had shown that hope, heart, and cleverness were as powerful as any engine or weapon. Lyra looked at him with shining eyes. "What's next?" she asked, her voice filled with excitement. Jackson smiled, knowing the adventure was far from over. "Next we keep dreaming," he said. "Next we shake the stars even more." And in that moment, standing together in the glowing hangar, surrounded by the whispers and cheers of the galaxy, Jackson and Lyra knew they had changed something. Not just a race, not just a machine, but the way the universe looked at humans forever. The small human mechanic and the brave alien girl had proven one simple truth. Sometimes the smallest hands can do the greatest things. And sometimes even the stars themselves can be moved.